And good afternoon, everyone. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about Julio Jones, and not just the comments that he had yesterday, but that's going to be a big part of it because he made national news yesterday when he was on the Skip and Shannon show on Fox Sports. When he was asked about going, what were his plans? Is he coming back to Atlanta? And he said, "I'm out of there. I'm out of there." So if you're one of the few people that haven't seen that clip, let's bring it up for you here real quick.
You want to go to the Cowboys, Julio, or you want to stay in Atlanta?
Back it up just a little bit.
You want to go to the Cowboys, Julio, or you want to stay in Atlanta?
Oh man, nah, I'm out of there, man.
He's out of there. Are you going to? Ideally, where would you like to go?
Right now I want to win.
Okay. Well, don't go to Dallas. If you go, you ain't winning in Dallas, Julio.
Man, listen, come on, man. You already know I know.
Okay.
Can you remind him we're on television?
Ask him why I wore the Dallas.
Listen. You know how people is, man, with all that going on with the picture.
Yeah.
And all that stuff like that.
Okay.
Man, I ain't never been on that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. That's good enough. Julio.
So interesting. One of the things that concerns me, let me bring up this banner right here. Did Julio know he was live? Did he know? Because when he picked up, Shannon Sharp didn't tell him. If they're close enough friends, he may have known that he was, Shannon's on this time. But, frankly, nobody watches that show live. The ratings will tell you that nobody watches the Skip and Shannon show live. They make a lot of clips on social media and stuff. But did Julio know he was live? You heard the panic in their co-host producer's voice in the back. Can someone remind him that he's on TV? I've followed Julio Jones since he was at Foley High School in South Alabama. Since he was 15 years old, this kid's had 5 stars next to his name and was under the microscope. I can't remember a single quote in 15 years from Julio Jones. To his credit, A.J. Green was the same way. Both of those guys came out at the same time. I can't remember a single thing he's ever said. He doesn't have a memorable quote in a decade and a half. And he's going to come on live TV and say something like that? I don't think so. It doesn't mean he's not thinking it, but he's never been about the attention, the spotlight, except what he does on the field. I have a feeling, if I had to guess, that Julio Jones is a little pissed off and he's a little embarrassed, both. And it's not even in his nature to come out and walk those back because he doesn't like being in the public spotlight. So my question on that is, did he even know he was live? My guess is he didn't. And it's unfortunate. It gives us some insight into what's going on with his "I'm out of there" comment. And it can be taken 2 different ways. He was initially asked about Dallas and about Atlanta. I don't think there was a ton of question about what he meant was that he was out of there. And we've been talking about this for a while. The rumors started surfacing that he was possibly being moved in late March, early April. And if you look at the Falcons draft strategy, at the time it made sense. If you look at the team, it makes sense. Julio Jones has spent 10 years, he's 32 years old, spent 10 years with the Atlanta Falcons. And it makes sense that he might want to make a move to a team that's going to win. Because this team right now, for all of our optimism, and frankly, if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, we're not optimists. I've been following the Falcons since 1980. I moved to Atlanta when I was 5 years old in 1978. I've seen a lot of stuff that makes you cynical. So if you're like that with the Atlanta Falcons, this doesn't feel like a team that's ready to win now. And that's what he says. He says, "I want to win." And really, Falcons fans, and there's a bunch of y'all coming in. I'd love to have you have comments in here. We're double digits already, so please join in. It makes this so much more fun. I'd like this to be a back and forth, almost a talk show type of a format. So leave your comments. I'll highlight them, and then we'll talk more about them. But I said in January, we were talking about what the Falcons should do with their first-round draft pick. It feels like this team has missed its window. It does. Matt Ryan's 36 years old. Julio's 32 years old. This team, whether they want to admit to it or not, is ready for a rebuild. Coming off a 5-11 season with a bad defense, a bad running game, a ton of sacks. This team missed its window. And that's why I said from the beginning, a trade down scenario in the draft would be really, really good. If they had gotten the San Francisco deal that they gave to the Dolphins for 3, oh man, Terry Fontenot probably would have snatched their hands off. Now, Julio, going back to what he said, I want to win. He says, I want to win. This team isn't ready to build now. And that was the thing that was so frustrating to me, was the narrative about that Kyle Pitts was a win now move. Best player available. This was a win now move. This wasn't a win now move. I said from the get-go, the only way drafting Kyle Pitts makes sense for this team is if Julio's leaving. Because replacing one of the top 2 or 3 receivers in the league, one of the, and frankly, a guy that we can start talking about, one of the best receivers of all time, Julio Jones belongs in that conversation. If you've got a chance to find his successor, and if he can be 75% of what Julio Jones is, that's a good pick for the next 10 years. That's a good pick. Matt Ryan has 4 or 5 more years than him. My preference was Justin Fields, because I believe that this is a rebuild, and getting your franchise quarterback at the time was the most important thing you could do. But Matt Ryan can play at it's a lot of controversy, but I still think he is an above average quarterback in this league for the next 5 years. So if you could get the replacement for Julio Jones, that makes sense. And I've said that there aren't going to be a lot of true Falcons fans that are going to begrudge Julio Jones this move. And D Reigns is on here too. He said he should go, and I'm a diehard Falcons fan. We get it. I'm with you. Julio Jones has spent 10 years being nothing but the consummate professional. This isn't a team that's built to win right away. He's only got a couple years more left of his career. If he moves on and goes to a contender, frankly, I'm going to wish him good luck, say thank you, and good luck. But getting back to the draft strategy on here, with Kyle Pitts and the win now philosophy, it feels like the Falcons may be closer than they are because of so many close games. But let's look at the numbers. I've written this so many times that I just copy and paste it at the point, so I'm just going to read it. In 2020, the Falcons finished dead last in total defense, had the 27th ranked rushing attack, allowed the 5th most sacks, and have a quarterback that's going to be 36 heading into the 2021 season. He is 36. Since the first time I wrote it, he's had his birthday. So he is 36 years old. Does that sound like a win now team? What they did have last year was the 5th ranked passing offense. So the one thing that they could do well was throw the ball. And that was with a half-fit, half-healthy Julio Jones. If Julio Jones is coming back full strength this time, Calvin Ridley emerges as a 1,400-yard receiver. How is Kyle Pitts going to help you win now? There's only one football. Let me run through a couple of numbers here real quick, because if you go back to 2019, Julio Jones, fully healthy, Austin Hooper, Pro Bowl tight end, Calvin Ridley, an emerging talent. They combined for 237 catches, 3,047 yards, and 19 touchdowns. How much better is the 2021 team with Julio Jones going to be than that? There's only one football to go around. Say, well, he's a matchup nightmare. How are you going to double team all these guys? Easy. You keep them in 3rd and long and you sack Matt Ryan. That team, by the way, with those huge numbers, Julio Jones, Austin Hooper, 3,000 yards receiving, almost 250 catches, started 1-7. 1-7. Kyle Pitts is not a win now draft pick. He's not. But if Julio Jones is gone, I'm on board with this. It makes sense. And I've said also all along that just because I didn't think it was the right pick for this scenario, if we don't know everything, I'm still excited to see Kyle Pitts play. He is a hell of a talent. Going at the number 4, you are either going to get your quarterback of the future, or you're going to get a really exciting prospect. And again, I'll state again, because of what this Falcons team needed, I think they needed to trade down. I wish if they had been offered that package that the Miami Dolphins got at 3. If they turn that down, there's no way they possibly could have turned that down. 3 number 1 draft picks, that was the ideal situation. And I feel like we were so close, like the Falcons were so close, that I wish that could happen, but it didn't. But what they did get was a possible Julio Jones replacement. So you take Julio out of the equation, what have you got? You've got Kyle Pitts, who by all intents and purposes is a ready receiver. I'm not going to say he's a legit number one, but the signs are there. 6'5", huge catch radius, tons of speed. He is a matchup nightmare. I'm excited about to see him play. You got Calvin Ridley. His numbers last year were 90 catches, 1,374 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That's only 20 yards off of Julio's last full healthy season, and it's 3 better touchdowns. So if you're asking what could they have brought to the table on that 2019 team, only 19 touchdowns, that could have gotten better. Yeah, it could have. But you weren't fixing the defense. You weren't fixing the offensive line. Some of that's going to change because of the scheme. 2 tight ends, better protection, better running game. So that should have gotten better. But this wasn't a team that's ready to win now. That's why Julio wants to go. And that's why Kyle Pitts was drafted as best player available for the future. This isn't a win now team. And that's okay. I understand that. There's a lot of salary cap implications here because the Falcons were in cap hell. They've got to clear up Julio's salary just to sign Kyle Pitts. That's how bad it was. So Julio Jones moving on makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to be happy about it by any stretch. For me, Julio Jones is going to go down as the best Atlanta Falcon, the greatest Atlanta Falcon of all time in his 10 years. But from a talent perspective, it's either him or Deion Sanders. Those are both Hall of Fame talents right out of the gate. And Deion only spent, I think, 4 years with the Falcons. So he didn't put in enough time to make that list. Julio put in a decade. And I think he's going down as the greatest Atlanta Falcon of all time. I'm going to be sad to see him go, but I want him to go win. I don't want him to go win in Tampa, Bernard. Bernard Leonard puts on there, he says, Julio to Tampa Bay. I don't want to see him go win in the division. I don't want to see him go win in Tampa. But I do want to see him. I'd be happy for him. I will root for him no matter almost wherever he goes. He's not going to New Orleans. He's not going to Tampa. And it's going to be hard for me to ever root for the New England Patriots, and we won't bring up why. We all know why. But I'm going to be a Julio Jones fan for life. Enter Zone, I appreciate the comment. It says, I ain't winning anything in Atlanta. If you're an older Falcons fan, like me, I'm pushing 50 years old. I've been a Falcons fan for 40 years now. This is really a golden age of Atlanta Falcons football. I saw somebody, there was one of the articles that may have been on the Falcoholic or the Falcons Wire that was talking about that Arthur Blank needs to be held accountable. Excuse me? I called that an age check. I was like, that whoever wrote that must be under 35 years old. Because if you're old enough to remember the Smith family, Rankin Smith Sr. and Jr., you will never say a bad thing about Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank pours his heart and soul into this franchise, and more importantly, puts his money into this franchise. The Smiths were happy to watch the team go 5-11 every year and just collect their check, which is a problem with the franchise model of the NFL. Is it allows owners to just sit back there and just have it be a business for them. I never got the feeling that they cared, and you never felt that way about Arthur Blank. Arthur Blank did immediately turned the Falcons around. The Falcons didn't have back-to-back winning seasons in their history until Arthur Blank took over. That's not a coincidence. So I didn't win anything. So Julio Jones came real close, as close as we've ever been with the Atlanta Falcons, and he was the guy that made the play that should have made the game-winning field goal that should have iced the game. So he was real close. Falcons aren't close right now. They're not close right now. They're a ways away. You talk about an Enter Zone mentions so Julio Jones to the Chargers makes sense. I do a lot of, and I'm going to go back here up just a little bit with Piano Player. Says after Broncos for breakfast, now Falcons for lunch, Dallas for dinner. Maybe we could do something like that. But with the Broncos, they were close to the same record. I think they were 6-10 last year. They had a ton of injuries, so they are possibly one player away from getting. That's why there's so much talk about why would Aaron Rodgers go to a team that finished there. So that's not the case with the Falcons. The Falcons aren't one player away. Like I said, last in total defense. And guess what happened? They lost the 3 safeties that started games last year. That might be a bonus because I'm a big fan of Richie Grant and what they're going to bring, but a healthy Keanu O'Neal is a pretty damn good safety. So, I don't know that the Falcons are immediately getting better on defense, and they finished last year. Should get better. They should get better just through better schemes and a defense. An offense hopefully won't put them in as many bad situations. But they're not ready to go. The scheme's going to help some of these stats that I went through again. 27th ranked rushing attack. That's going to get better. Running 2 tight ends. 5th most sacks allowed. Running a 2 tight end set in a power running game. That's going to get better. The scoring might not necessarily get better. An Enter Zone says Julio Jones. So the Chargers make sense. It would. I'd love being a Falcons fan meant you always had to kind of root for other teams at the time. And Air Coryell and those powder blue uniforms that actually they were royal blue at the time with Dan Fouts and Charlie Joyner and Chuck Muncie and all those guys. I loved the Chargers, and going out there and Julio out in California and throwing the ball around would be a lot of fun to watch. So it does make sense. Julio to the Patriots makes sense. Now my question with the Patriots. How do they afford him? If you go and look, I think I saw they had about $15 million in cap space left. So that would be a nice fit, but then they'd be about done. So they'd still have to make some moves. And what can the Falcons expect to get back? That's one of my questions is life without Julio. What can they expect to get back? It sounds like they're holding out for a 2nd round pick. And it tells you a little something about his contract when people are balking at Julio Jones for a 2nd round pick. But people don't want to be on the hook. Other teams don't want to be on the hook for another $30 million because of his age is a concern. The dead cap is more of a problem for the Atlanta Falcons. But the fact that people are saying, I don't know if I want to give up a 2nd rounder for Julio Jones. Good Lord, are you kidding me? I still think he's going to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. He's going to be healthy. One of the problems that he's had in Atlanta that hopefully would have gotten fixed with this running game and another big receiver. So Falcons use him like a running back. They throw slip screens and bubble screens to him all the time. He takes a beating getting the Falcons from the 20 to the 20, and then he's got to come out because he's gotten beat up like a running back. So his red zone numbers have never been what they should have been, and I blame the way he's used. It's like, why isn't Julio Jones in the game when the Falcons are 1st and 10 from the 15? Well, where's Julio Jones? He's on the sidelines. Why? It's because he's gassed. He's got 6 catches for 70 yards on this drive. He needs a breather. So I think that's part of the problem. And getting Julio out in I still want to call him San Diego, out there might make a little more sense. And one of the questions, and again, we've got several people watching. We've got a bunch of people watching. Please comment on here. Helps me out. I that way I know I'm talking about and I've got answers for what you want to talk about instead of me just monologuing here for 25, 30 minutes. So I love the comments. I'll certainly highlight you coming in. But life without Julio, what can we expect? If they're running a 2 tight end, by they I mean the Atlanta Falcons, a 2 tight end set with Mike Davis as the sole running back, who's going to step up? One guy I mentioned already has already stepped up, and this is why it didn't make sense to have Julio Jones, Kyle Pitts, and Calvin Ridley at the same team if you're picking at 4. Calvin Ridley last year had 90 catches, 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley's the number 1, and he's entering a contract year. So his option was picked up. He's entering a contract here. He's got all the incentive in the world to go out and have a huge season. So Calvin Ridley has already stepped up. Russell Gage last year, 72 catches, 786 yards, 4 touchdowns. So for the Falcons to reach that same 2019 number with 240 catches, 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, what they need out of their 3rd guy, which in this case we're going to call Kyle Pitts, is about 90 catches, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. Does that sound out of the question for a rookie season for Kyle Pitts in this offense with what they're counting on him, what he's bringing to the table? That'd be a big season, But we're talking about people who a player that people have said is the best tight end prospect of all time. I've actually compared him to Plaxico Burress, the gigantic one. When I see Kyle Pitts, that's who I see. Plaxico Burress wasn't a 4-4 guy. Kyle Pitts is. So in this scheme, in the slot, because that's basically where he'll be lined up on the hash marks as a tight end, and I'm sure they'll break him out sometimes, in the slot, with that size, is 90 catches, 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns out of the question for Kyle Pitts? I don't think so. What do you think? I'm interested in what your expectations are with Julio being gone, if he's gone, and it looks like that's a pretty good chance. What are your expectations for Kyle Pitts? I'll tell you what, I'd take him early in a fantasy draft. That's for sure, especially a tight end mandatory or what's the kind of league where you keep players? A keeper league? I would take him. I'd think about taking Kyle Pitts real early. You know who else? Is Mike Davis. Mike Davis, the running back. Now, I don't think Derrick Henry was a target out of the backfield a ton. Mike Davis was with the Carolina Panthers last year, and he wasn't even a full-time starter. He had 59 catches. His average wasn't great, but he's still moving the ball. I think he had about 500 yards receiving, 600 yards receiving on 59 catches, maybe a little less than that. But there's 60 catches right there. He's going to be a feature back. And then one of the rookies that they're bringing in, Frank Darby from Arizona State, I got to see at the Senior Bowl, and I loved him. I love his energy. I love his attitude. When I saw him, he was dancing. If you've been on my channel and watched the highlights, there's music in the background, all of them from the Senior Bowl. That's what they were playing through the stadium, and it got kind of annoying, but it was fun watching Frank Darby out there kind of dancing around and having a good time. So I think that's a guy that you might see step up. But you've legitimately got at least 4 receivers, at least, because you got Hayden Hurst, who's back on a contract here, Kyle Pitts, you've got Calvin Ridley, and you've got Russell Gage, and then you got Mike Davis coming out of the backfield. I'm not worried about the passing game, with or without Julio Jones. It's definitely better with him, but the passing game isn't what's holding this team back. It's the running game, pass protection, and defense. Those are what's going to be. Those are the ones that have to be fixed for this team to take a step forward. So let me hit the comments here. And it says, Pitts is too tall to be in the slot. Hermetic King, I appreciate the comment coming in from Facebook. Why? Why is he too tall to be in the slot? I don't think he's necessarily too tall to be anywhere. But when you're playing a tight end position, in a sense, you're already in the slot. If you run an out route, a little speed out, you're only 3 or 4 yards from being in the slot anyway. And depending on where you are in the hash marks, the one of the tight end spots is almost a slot receiver. I don't think it's that big of a difference. I think you'll see him lined up in the slot a few times. Now, is that where he's going to be full-time? No. But what I'm saying is he's going to be lined up inside, going against linebackers, and breaking off jams from the defensive end and linebackers, that he should be. I think he's going to be. What I'm saying is I don't think 90 catches, 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns is out of the question. I think that would be that'd be a tremendous rookie season for him. But I don't think it's out of the question. Are we going to the Super Bowl this year? Says Bally David. I think that's in jest. No. What would you consider a good season, though? From 5-11, what would you consider a success? Arthur Smith, new coach. Terry Fontenot, it's their first season. 17-game season. What on paper is supposed to be one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. I don't agree with that, especially when you look at the way the home and away games line up. But what would you consider be a good season this year? I think 9-8, even 8-9 would show good progress. You're starting to get some salary cap relief. Atlanta is still a great destination for free agents. That in the next season, I think that if you go 8-9, 9-8, then you can start building on the next year. And going back to the comments, and King says his hips aren't loose enough. I don't know that it matters because you run a quick slant when you're coming out of there. And plus you're automatically in a blocking position when you're running the sweeps coming out of there too. So don't be surprised to see Kyle Pitts get some time at several different wide receiver positions. And coming in, I'm guessing Kale Burke is coming in maybe a little bit later, talking about, I thought we was in a win now mode. going back to what started this whole conversation is this isn't a win now team. It's not. That's why Julio wants to go. Julio wants to leave because this team isn't ready to win now. Repeat some of the numbers from last year. Dead last in defense, 27th ranked rushing attack, 5th most sacks, and the 5th highest passing attack. They had the 5th best passing game last year. 5th best. Where did they least need the help in the draft? The very least, a receiver. That was the least they needed in the draft if they were in win now mode. If they were in win now mode, they do not take Kyle Pitts because he doesn't help this team in the areas that need help the most. The draft, in my opinion, was set up because they know Julio wanted to go and they had a chance to get a replacement for him for the next decade. This isn't a win now team. They missed that window. I believe they missed it when they hired Steve Sarkisian as offensive coordinator coming off the Super Bowl, and then brought him back and they started 1-7. So I don't. This isn't a win now team, and then I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. What do you think is the ceiling for this team? I'm thinking 9-8 is a really good season. I think that'd be a great improvement, a step in the right direction. And Stone Cultivator says Dean Peace will bring better play calling to our defense. That's the hope, because it's not going to be done with personnel right now. There haven't been enough players to come in. I really like Richie Grant at safety. I love that pick. I started writing about him when I got back from the Senior Bowl because we knew the Falcons were going to have to get a starter coming out of the Senior Bowl. They had to. I mean, not out of the Senior Bowl, out of the draft. They had to. They lost 3 guys who started their safety spots last year to either free agency or they let them go. So they signed a journeyman who's going to be one of the starters, and they drafted Richie Grant, who I think is going to be the other starter. You're going into the 2021 season with 2 rookie safeties, or 2 new starters, a journeyman and a rookie safety, and this is that's a win now team. No, not for me. It's not. Not for me. It's not. They didn't have the resources to fix the defense enough for this to be a win now team. The offensive line, and what Nikeo says, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, the defense is about schemes, and we've seen our defense was good and even great at times, not in the last couple of years. It got good when Vic Beasley had a crazy year and put the quarterback down. It got real good then. But the last couple of years, this has not been a good defense. And last year, statistically, they were last. They were dead last. And schemes are important, but there's an old saying, I'll say it one time. They say it's not the X's and O's, it's Jimmy and the Joes. The Jimmies and the Joes didn't improve dramatically. There's a couple new players that have come in. There's some bigger linebackers that have come in. I like Atlanta's linebacking core, but if you look at the front line, you got Grady Jarrett, and then some guys that have to step up. If you look at the defensive backfield, AJ Terrell and some guys that have to step up. There's a lot of question marks on defense. And frankly, I think who can help the defense the most is the offense. A little better ball control, a little better time of possession, less turnovers, all those types of things I think can really help this defense go. And and I said, and Nikeo says, I'm talking about after we got rid of Dan Quinn, there's still 9 games left in the season, right? And they still finished statistically last. So I don't think I don't think there's enough. And going back, will the defense get better? Yeah. Is the defense improving enough that this is a win now team? No, it's not. It's not. And that's why Julio wants to go. Roderick, welcome to the show. What do you think about our center pick? He seems tough and technical, but is he big enough? I think he's big enough. Kid out of Stanford. It's a good pick. It's a good pick, and I really like Mayfield out of Michigan, because the question marks about him were his technical abilities. When we on my channel, on my YouTube channel, I've got an interview with Sam Webb, who covers Michigan. And he said they actually had to back him down a little bit because he's mean. He had a lot of dog in him, which I think is a good thing. But the questions were, was he going to be good enough as a tackle and pass protection? Well, if you're playing in a 2 tight end set, perfect. He's got help. He's got help on either side, and the schemes will help him. So I'm interested in seeing Mayfield as well. It's Takeover on YouTube. Appreciate the comment. Said, hope he joins New England. There's other places I'd probably rather see him play. I don't think I'll ever be able to root for New England in anything for the rest of my life, and the rest of y'all know why. And Stone Cultivator says, we almost beat the Chiefs. Play calling on offense and defense have been our major issues. Smith and Peace will make us better. They'll be better. And in the NFL, anybody can beat anybody on any given day. That's why you have to look at the long haul. Look at the 5-11 record. Look at the 32nd ranked defense. Guys can get up at any one time. And, I think that there's serious personnel gaps on this team for the team to be a win now. And again, when I think win now, I think let's make a run in the playoffs and have a chance to win a Super Bowl. That's not this team. I don't think that's team. That's this team. So again, there's people. I don't know how far we're off when we talk about this team can be better. What's better to you? What are your expectations coming in? Coming into the season, what do you think? If you say this is a season I think is a good season, and below this number I think is a bad season. For me, that number is between 7 and 9. 7 and 9. I'm still on 16-game schedule, so I'm going to call it 8 and 9 and 9 and 8. For me, that's kind of the line. If you're below 8 and 9, I don't think this was a very good season. Maybe they can still show improvement, move up statistically, but it's still a little bit disappointing. 9 and 8, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I think that would be about as high as my expectations are. And again, cynical Atlanta sports fan, so I usually err on the side of being conservative. But my expectations, I would consider 9 and 8. That's kind of my line right there. And sorry, just grab a quick drink. HK. Love the background, by the way. I love the pyramids right there. After the next draft, Atlanta will have a top 5 defense, I believe. Well, we'll see. We'll see. They didn't get a ton of help on defense in this draft. They got some help. Richie Grant, I love him. I love Richie Grant out of UCF. But did we get enough improvement in the front 7? Hopefully that'll come. And even next year, if you get a Bosa type, a Chase Young type, in the first round, does he make enough difference in his first year? So how long do you think we have with Ryan? Stone Cultivator. Appreciate all these comments, y'all. How long do we think we have with Ryan? Do you think we should trade him before his contract is up and see what we can get for him? Curious on your thoughts. His contract makes that virtually impossible this year. But if we go to next season and get to June 1st, when you can cut his dead money in half again, so that would almost be into quarters. Because right now his dead cap money would be something like 25 or 30 million. That's a non-starter for a team. Can't do that, especially if you're not going to draft his replacement in the draft. Could he get moved on next year? I think so. And depending on how this season goes, Julio is calling no joy. I want out. So I think that's part of it right there. He's saying I want out. I don't think this is a win now team. Matt might do the same thing next year, but Julio didn't do that. I still don't think, going back to one of the original questions, did Julio know he was live? I still don't think Julio did that publicly on purpose. He's just not like that. I've followed this kid since he was a junior in high school at Foley, Alabama, and he's never had a memorable quote ever, except for if you're an Alabama fan and he says, I'm committed to the University of Alabama. You'll remember that one for life. After that, he hadn't said anything that anybody ever remembers because he's just not that type of player. And Matt Ryan, I have a hard time picturing him go the Aaron Rodgers route where he starts, making public comments to bash the franchise, so to speak, or not the franchise, but some of the other personnel involved. But I could see Matt Ryan quietly going behind the scenes like Julio did this year, next year. So definitely this season of Matt Ryan. After that, every day that goes by after this season is a better chance that Julio gets moved on. That Matt Ryan gets moved on. So I think it will. It definitely won't be this year. Maybe next year. Maybe we'll take a look and see how the season goes. Michael on Facebook, appreciate you coming in. We have a couple of cupcakes on the schedule. Unfortunately, Michael, that's what other teams are saying about the Falcons. 5-11, bad defense. They're chalking that up as a W. So you have to start beating those teams to be considered, a serious team. And Chaz with a big long comment in here. If we had a defense, we'll be okay. If Atlanta had a defense, we'll be okay. Julio wants to go. That's fine. And I agree with that. But that's a big if, y'all. That's a big if. If we had a defense, if the Falcons had a defense, it's not going to be easy to go from 32 up. The Falcons have been 27th or lower in defense, I think, for the last 4 or 5 seasons. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. So it's not going to be easy. You get a top 5 defense, you get a top 10 defense. Atlanta probably has a Super Bowl ring, maybe 2. But that's a big if. They don't just grow on trees. So I think this is about the longest I've ever gone in a live show talking about the Falcons and the personnel without mentioning Thomas Dimitroff and his proclivity for treating the team like it was a 7-on-7 team and ignoring the lines of scrimmage. Hopefully that changes. And the Falcons get stronger up front on both sides of the ball, because that's where it ends. That's where it starts. If you can get after the quarterback and if you can protect your quarterback, you got a chance to be a pretty good team. I think Daniel Jenkins is saying this sounds like about Rodgers. He needs to man up and finish his contract and stop crying. We have new outlets with new coaches and a new GM. Matt Ryan's not crying. He's not saying anything. What he's saying has all been positive about this franchise. The people here believe in me, and I believe in myself, and I plan on playing at a high level for several more years. So I don't see him as crying at all. I think he's got if he were to say something along the lines of, I'd like to move on and play for a winner, that's tough to say as a quarterback. So, we might be talking about Julio. Yeah, that makes more sense when Daniel's on this. When Tyler says, I believe he's talking about Julio. I have a little bit of a problem with this whole thought process with the contracts. You've got to remember, most of these contracts, they're starting to change a little bit. You see, most of the rookie deals are guaranteed, but these contracts, finish your contract. Okay, I will if you will. Okay, you're the general manager and you're the franchise. I'll honor my contract if you will, because they don't. These contracts are a series of 1-year option deals as long as they're beneficial for the club. That's it. As soon as that contract is more harmful to the club than good, they're going to waive a guy. They're going to waive him. And the only thing they get out of it is their signing bonus. So that's why I have a little bit of problem. And it started back for me for a long time. Do y'all remember back when Jamal Anderson held out after 98 and Dan Reeves comes out and said, he's got a contract, he should be here? That was the day after they just waived 3 guys with contracts and weren't going to pay him another dime. So that's the hypocrisy of the NFL that rubs me the wrong way. So Julio Jones has every right to come out and say, I'd like to be moved. The fact that he was live, I still think was an accident. I don't think he meant to do that. It's totally out of character for him. He's been quiet behind the scenes about this and hasn't said a word. It's hard to get a word out of Julio Jones. So Ryder Cook says, well, I certainly trust our backroom staff, and they will definitely be better coached. Special teams will be better too. Pitts is a monster. When I use the word trust, Roderick, I trust them to do what they think is best. Do I trust them to always make the wrong decisions, make the right decisions? Hell no. No. And that's why we have these discussions, because nobody gets them all right. Nobody. And as Atlanta sports fans, we've seen a lot of wrong. I don't blindly trust that what they decide to do is the right thing. I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they are doing what they think is the best thing, and hopefully it will be. But I don't blindly put faith in anybody, because you go look at this draft, 32 teams, 32 first-round draft picks, 16 of those guys are going to be busts. So that's just the way it is. It's just human nature. So I appreciate everybody coming in here today. This was probably our most active Falcon of our live chats around the Falcons, and I'd like to do this again. If you guys enjoyed it, and I've got noon open on most days. I can do Falcons for lunch, start bringing in guests, and do these 30 minutes while you're on your lunch break or whatnot. I'd love to keep doing these. Make sure you hit that like button and share. And if you're on YouTube and this is the first time you've been on my page, please hit that subscribe button. That's a big help. If you're on Facebook, go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/c/Scott Kennedy, and I put in all my stories on Facebook. I'll embed a YouTube page. But if you can like, subscribe, share, do all that kind of stuff, that's the best thing you can do to help me. If you're watching this on demand, leave a comment. Or if you have any follow-ups, leave a comment. I'll answer them. I'm all over the Facebook and the Facebook page and the YouTube page. So I appreciate everybody being here, and I look forward to doing this again and again and again. So thank you, and I hope y'all have a good rest of your day.